Welcome back to the Canadian Fall Prevention Virtual Conference, day number 5. I'm Pamela Fuselli, President and CEO at Parachute, and your moderator for today's sessions. Before we get started, I have some quick housekeeping items to run through. We have muted each of you, but we encourage you to use the Q&A box to ask any questions that you might have. There will be time for questions at the end of the presentation today, and I'll be monitoring the Q&A box as the presentation progresses. We have our IT team standing by in case any technical difficulties come up. Please let us know in the chat box if you're having any trouble with video, visuals, or sound. There will be a short survey at the end of the session. Your feedback is really appreciated. We would like to begin by acknowledging that the Parachute office is situated upon traditional territories. The territories include the Wendat, the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, Métis, and the Mississaugas of the New Credit First Nations. As this conference is taking place virtually, we would like to invite all attendees to learn and reflect on what First Nations, Inuit, and/or Métis land their offices or homes might be located on at nativeland.ca. We would also like to thank our gold sponsor, Brown Healthcare, home of Hip Saver Canada, the exclusive Canadian distributor of the world's leading hip protector, for their generous support of the Canadian Fall Prevention Virtual Conference. You can check out your delegate package for more information. So let's get started. Day 5 of the conference looks at vulnerable populations and special considerations in falls across the lifespan, with a focus on women and special talk on staying well during the COVID-19 pandemic to close out the conference. We have a great presentation in store for you over the next hour. You will hear from 3 speakers, Dr. Brenna Bath, Dr. Kathy Arnold, and Shelley Prosco. As always, there will be time for the Q&A after the presentation is complete. It's my pleasure to introduce our speakers for their presentation on Balanced Flow Yoga, a community-based intervention for peri- and postmenopausal women. So let me introduce you to our speakers. Dr. Brenna Bath is an associate professor in the School of Rehabilitation Science, College of Medicine, and an associate member of the Canadian Centre for Health and Safety in Agriculture and the Department of Community Health and Epidemiology at the University of Saskatchewan. Dr. Bath has been a physical therapist for more than 20 years. Dr. Kathy Arnold is a professor and director at the School of Rehabilitation Science at the University of Saskatchewan in Saskatoon. She has been a licensed practicing physical therapist for 34 years, with an interest in fall prevention programming for older adults. Recently, her research has focused on the biomechanics of falling and ways to mitigate risk of injury. And Shelley Prosco is a physiotherapist, yoga therapist, author, and educator dedicated to enhancing whole person-centered healthcare by integrating yoga into rehabilitation. She has a clinical practice in Alberta, Canada, and teaches various yoga therapy and rehabilitation programs globally. Shelley is a pioneer of physio yoga and co-editor of Yoga and Science in Pain Care. So please welcome our presenters, and I will hand it over to them.
Thank you very much, Pam, for that introduction. And again, thank you to Parachute for hosting this conference. It's been a great conference, and it's our pleasure to be here on the final day to present a study that we have been involved in, along with an intervention that's been developed by Shelley and Brenna. And so the majority of the presentation actually is going to focus on that, and I'll be giving a bit of an introduction on the research component. So this is Balanced Flow Yoga. We'd first like to acknowledge the territory that we're on, which is Treaty 6 territory, homeland of the Métis, and we pay our respect to the First Nations, Métis, Inuit, and all First People of Canada whose diverse histories, languages, and cultures enrich our communities. So to summarize what we're going to cover in about the next 45 minutes so that we have time for question and answers at the end, I'm going to summarize a bit about our yoga intervention research project that we have recently conducted just over the past year, some of the background about yoga literature and preliminary results of our study. And then I'm going to hand it over to Brenna and Shelley, and they'll be talking more about multidimensional benefits of yoga related to fall risk and the framework that they use to develop the community-based intervention that we designed for this study. And last but not least, you're going to get an opportunity to have some experiential practice demonstrating components of the class, and what better way to end or either start a Friday than doing some yoga practice. So in terms of background literature, and literature is actually continuing to grow in this area, and generally results are very positive. Yoga has been associated with benefits to decrease fall risk, and that runs the gamut from balance, strength, health, quality of life, menopausal symptoms. There's one systematic review that's been done, and there were only 6 trials that met the criteria to fit that review, but they showed small to medium effects, mostly in balance and mobility. There's also been studies in yoga intervention for decreasing fear of falls in older adults. And although there's starting to be some small studies that have looked at fall rates and decreasing risk of falling, there's no substantive evidence yet that these outcomes result in a decrease in fall rates in large RCTs, or the reduction in injuries associated with falling, which was one of the interests in our study. So this study, it was a pilot study, and we started it just over a year ago, and it's now complete, and we're in the process of analyzing data, but we do have some preliminary results that I'll share with you today. So the study was to determine the effect of 12 weeks of a yoga intervention on fall risk factors, and there were a number of fall risk factors that we measured that I can't cover all of them today, but it included balance, upper extremity strength, reaction time, incontinence, balance confidence, and walking tests. We also looked at the effect on the capacity to land and control the descent of a forward fall. And so for those of you that were at my presentation on Wednesday, you saw the simulated falling apparatus that we've used. So we were also looking at the effect of this yoga intervention on that landing and control as a potential to decrease risk of injury in those types of falls. As part of the study, we also ran a qualitative component. So we did a focus group both for the instructors and for the participants, and investigating perceived changes in general health, fall risk, menopausal, and other symptoms. There were 36 women that participated, and it was a repeated measures design where each participant acted as their own control. So they were measured at baseline, and then after a control period at pre-yoga, and then post-yoga. During the course of this presentation, we're also going to present some of the quotes from the participant experience and the themes from the qualitative analysis near the end. So some preliminary results, we actually had a fairly low dropout rate, and I'll just talk a bit about the commitment. This class happened early in the morning. It was at a community site. It was open to the public to attend as well, but it was at 6:30 in the morning. So it was a commitment for the participants to participate. It was also high time commitment for testing. So the testing that we had was actually 2 different tests, and each one lasted about 2 to 3 hours. So we were pleased that there was a low dropout rate. The attendance average was also good in the class. So it appeared that the yoga class we designed was certainly feasible to have in the community. We did note some improvements, and we're still in the process of analyzing those, but there was improvements in both upper and lower body strength, balance, reaction time, which is an upper extremity reaction time, reaching hands to force plate, incontinence, which we measured with a stress test, and both incontinence and bother and self-report, and dual task tests, which we included the TUG cognitive test. We did also note, though, that during the control period, there were some improvements, so that there is an influence of study involvement.
Thanks for that, Kathy. So why yoga? As most of you are aware, yoga is a popular complementary health practice. It's been gaining popularity as one of the most commonly used practices in North America, especially among peri and postmenopausal women. Some of these reasons could be a perceived range of health improvements, such as easing menopausal symptoms, improving pelvic floor dysfunction, such as incontinence and pain, and enhanced bone loading to combat early osteoporosis, and just overall enhanced quality of life. Yoga is beyond physical poses. It is really a system of health that promotes physical, mental, emotional, social, and spiritual well-being. And it offers a lot of unique benefits to decrease both fall risk and injury risk in the event that fall is unavoidable. Hatha Yoga, which is the type of yoga that we used in this study, includes physical poses, mindful movements, breath awareness, and regulation practices that can address balance, flexibility, and promote upper body loading and whole body strength training. So when we looked at how to design the yoga intervention features, Shelley and I considered a number of factors that could improve balance and reduce risk of injury if falls were unavoidable. So obviously, balance, both static and dynamic, balance confidence, overall physical mobility, whole body awareness, but also pelvic floor awareness, and strength of upper and lower body. So, and I should back up a little bit. So in the introduction, Shelley was introduced as a yoga therapist. We are both physiotherapists. I myself am a yoga teacher. We can go back to there we go. So we trained the two instructors involved in the intervention. I myself also delivered the intervention as an instructor. We, in the framework, included 4 main components: awareness, breathing practices, mindful movement, and meditative practice. And Shelley is going to dive deeper into each one of these and provide an experiential experience with each of them.
Okay, thanks, Brenna and Kathy. So as Brenna said, I'm going to go through each of these components in a little more detail, just so you can have an appreciation for why we chose some of these things, and then we'll have a really lovely experience. So the class always started with this centering practice that helped the participants become more fully present and aware of their body, their breath, their overall state of their emotions and energetic state and thought patterns. And we know that awareness is the first step to change. So the more aware we can be of our body and our mind and our breath, the more chance we have at changing the patterns from ones that may be unhelpful to ones that might better support our balance health. So for example, the research shows that we have better balance when the abdominal muscles and the pelvic floor muscles are not so contracted, but they're more responsive. And we know that bracing, or like really holding in the abdominals and the pelvic floor, or another way to say that is over recruiting the core, we know that that can interfere with breathing and movement patterns that are associated with this sophisticated and coordinated timing of the team of muscles required for the body's reactive responses for things like optimal balance. So we included these practices to help participants bring awareness to areas of the body where they might be bracing and holding tension, like the pelvic floor, abdominals, and even in the neck and the shoulders. And then once people are aware of any tension, then there's a better chance they'll be able to let go of it or change it. And then, as we said, promote more effective balance strategies. And we also invited participants to set an intention for themselves. And this is something we commonly do in yoga. It's different than a goal. It's more of a theme that a person may want to focus on for their practice. And so here's a quote from one of the participants during the focus group. "I really have a hard time turning off my brain. So when I set that intention, that was significant for me. I liked the intentions, something good for your soul, something that I think I should continue doing. And then another component are the breathing practices. And just to keep in mind that these aren't stages necessarily, like it's not like we did one thing and then another and another. A lot of this is interwoven throughout the class. So the respiratory diaphragm is obviously our primary muscle for breathing, but it also plays a key role in our balance and our core strategies. And the research shows that a successful core strategy for optimal balance is dynamic. So it involves not only the diaphragm moving up and down as we breathe, but also the pelvic floor moving up and down as we breathe. So the respiratory diaphragm and the pelvic floor move together in the same direction with breath. So we focused on cueing the breath and using imagery to facilitate this pelvic floor and diaphragm relationship to optimize that core efficiency and balance. And we did this during static postures as well as dynamic movement. And just as an aside, no pose is ever really truly static. I know we use those terms a lot in rehab, but even when we're holding a pose and trying to stay stationary, there will always be movement in the body, from breathing. So if you're breathing, you're moving and those muscles are responding. And yoga teaches us that we can use any aspect of our existence to change any aspect of our existence. And we often use the breath as an agent of change. So we incorporated yoga breathing practices that are known to feel empowering and promote confidence in the person, which may include confidence in one's physical abilities, including balance. And we have a growing body of research that shows certain yoga breathing practices can also be used for calming our nervous systems. And we incorporated these as well, as this could help reduce any unwanted muscular tension or rigidity during movement, and again, therefore influencing balance. So here's another quote from another participant. I think that what was so helpful to remind yourself that all you have to do, just breathe. It puts you into a calmer state, relaxes you, takes some stress away. I really liked that aspect of it. And for the movement portion of the class, we included mindful practices that addressed upper and whole body strength, hand and wrist mobility, the ability to bear weight through the upper extremities, and movements to improve the ability to land and control descent, like Kathy was talking about, through the upper limbs. And these are all important, of course, for stopping falls. And then we also included standing balance practices, naturally. We focused on the dynamic movement, from moving from one posture to another in more of a flow sequence, hence the name balance flow, and paying close attention to the transition between the poses. So we're not just thinking ahead about that next pose, but we're really being mindful and present during that transition phase, and to try to help the participants really practice those transitions with control. And we focused on progressing the challenge of balance in a number of ways, things like narrowing the base of support or changing the center of body mass by moving extremities, trunk and head, and we'll do some of that in the practice, and changing visual cues and changing the surface that we're standing on. And we won't have time. We have about a 15-minute practice or so, so we'll have some fun. We won't have time, obviously, to go through everything, but it will give you an idea. So here's another quote from a participant. I'm surprised how quickly I did gain strength. I didn't think I would, and I noticed within about 5 sessions that I was stronger. The boots I have, I do them up by standing up, and then I usually fall over, and now I don't. And then finally, the meditative practices and key yoga concepts were integrated throughout the yoga class, and they address these themes of self-compassion, self-acceptance, being non-judgmental towards oneself, empowerment, confidence, and then balancing effort with ease. And I just want to mention that a really important key yoga concept during the mindful movement was to allow participants to find this just right amount of effort for their practice. So finding balance through strength and stability without that rigidity. So rather more of an efficiency and an ease. And the instructors that Brenna and I trained were trained to use language that promoted these themes and then helped participants really ultimately to trust their own body's innate wisdom and enhance confidence in their abilities. And then the class always ended with a relaxation component. So this concept of just kind of letting go of body tension and self-criticism, expectations, or any unhelpful thoughts. And this is indeed a very essential part of yoga class. And another quote, I think the last one we have here. I've learned a lot more about myself just in this little bit of time, aside from all the actual yoga. For me, it's just really been a positive experience, just a lot more confidence in trusting our bodies. Okay, so now we get to practice, and we're doing great for time. So it looks like we'll have maybe even 20 or maybe almost 25 minutes for practice. See if I can squeeze in a minute there. So for the practice, you don't really need, a lot of props or anything. Just, really all you'll need is a little bit of a space. We'll be on our hands and knees a bit. We'll be doing some stuff in standing. But you might want to grab a blanket. Sometimes I like it for my knees. I have a blanket here for when I'm on my hands and knees to just put under my knees for some comfort. And if you know that you like anything else, when you're on your hands and knees, maybe sometimes your wrists might be hard to put weight on. So if you're someone who knows you like to put a little roll or something under the wrists. So, and if you don't know, that's okay. Just you'll kind of figure it out as we move along. But mostly we'll be on our hands and knees and in standing. To start, I'm going to take you through that centering practice. Like I talked about the awareness, and this one is going to be about probably 4 minutes. So you can just stay sitting. I'm going to just stay sitting here. You don't need to look at me for this. So just find a comfortable position, either sitting, staying in your chair. Maybe you want to get onto the floor and lie down or sit on the floor. So as long as you can hear me. And just take a moment to settle in and bring your awareness to the overall general state of your thoughts. So we don't have to analyze anything. You're just kind of watching the thoughts as they float by. Notice if there's one particular thought that's maybe trying to take you away and elaborate on a story. And just smile at that, acknowledge it, and then just watch the next thought come in. Just a brief overall general awareness of the state of your mind. And then check in with the overall state of your emotions. And maybe even labeling a few. Happy, sad, joyful, content, irritated, frustrated. So just check in. And again, you don't have to change anything. And just noticing what's your overall emotional state at this moment. And then bringing your awareness to your overall energetic state. Does your energy feel high, low, medium? Or maybe you're not quite sure, and that's okay too. And then let's bring the awareness to the breath. So just notice in and out through the nostrils, or perhaps you're breathing through your mouth today. But just noticing as the breath enters in and out, any physical sensations. Maybe you can feel the temperature of the air as it enters and exits and how it's different on entering, maybe a little cooler and drier, and maybe a little more warmed and moistened on the exhale. And notice the rate and the pace of the breath. And the depth. And notice if there's any bumps or ridges, or if it's smooth or soft, just any qualities that come up as you're noticing the breath. And remember, you don't have to change anything. You're just watching, observing. And then notice how the breath is moving the body. So can you notice some of the more obvious areas of your body that are responding to the breath? Maybe in the abdomen or ribs. And then notice some of the more subtle areas that may be moving or responding with breath. And bringing your awareness to the perineum, the pelvic floor area. So this is that area at the base of the pelvis. And if you just think of where your two sit bones are, where your tailbone might be, where the pubic bone might be right at the front. And just that area sort of spanning the base of the pelvis. Perhaps you can feel some responsiveness there to breath. And if not, that's okay. We're just having fun and exploring, just being aware. And then let's shift awareness to the feet. Just notice where they're positioned. Notice the temperature of the feet or any physical sensations. And notice your legs, how they're positioned, where they might be touching the surface underneath you, and where they might be in space. And then feeling the trunk, any sensations through the back of the body, the low back, the mid back, the upper back, through the sides of the trunk, through the front. And then bring your awareness to your arms, just noticing the position that they're in, where they're touching perhaps a surface or maybe other parts of your body, and where the arms are in space. Notice the neck, shoulders, the face, the jaw. Just noticing any physical sensations from head to toe, head to fingers, and any tension that you might be feeling. And if you want to wiggle around and maybe take a couple sighs, audible exhales, just kind of let go of any of the tension that you think might not serve you right now. And then go ahead and set an intention for our practice, our movement practice. And this could be, I'll just give you examples in case you're not familiar with intentions. It could be something like you'd like to just try to stay present for this remaining 15-minute practice. Or maybe you'd like to focus on the breath. Or maybe your intention is that you would just like to have some fun, just kind of let go and just bring some joy into this practice. Or maybe the intention is that you'd like to be kind to yourself and not judge yourself for how you're doing. or choose something that you come up with. So I'll just give you a moment. Just pick one intention for yourself. Okay. And then come onto your hands and knees, and I will join you here. Okay. Just getting myself set up. So coming onto your hands and your knees. I'm not sure that you all can see me right now. I don't see myself, so let me just try this. Again. So we're having technical difficulties, but that's okay. Just on your hands and knees, start to shift your body weight forward and back. So once I get video back, and actually you don't even need to see me. It's probably better if you don't, because you can just focus on yourself, but just shift your body weight forward and back. Forward and back, and start to get used to the idea of having some weight through the wrists and the upper extremities, taking care, of course, if you need to back off a bit or just change your position. Maybe your hands go a little more in front of the shoulders. And just for the tech person here, it just says I can't start my video because failed to start. I'm not sure what's going on here, but
Shelley, it's Pam. I'll get in touch with Michael.
okay, can you all hear me? I'll just continue on practice. Can you all, just someone give me a sign that you can hear me so that I'll.
Yes, we can hear you, Shelley.
Okay, great. So I'm practicing my yoga right now, but trying to keep like regulated. Okay, so let's go into child's pose. So for those of you maybe not familiar, so you're on your hands and knees, and what you're going to do is just sink your sit bones back towards your heels, and we're going to do an extended child's pose. So your big toes are touching and your heels are apart and your knees are going to be apart. And then you're going to just fold the trunk forward. Now, if you need some bolsters or if you need something to rest your trunk on, then that's fine. And we're just going to rest in this position. And this is one of the really nice positions that we can use to feel this, the pelvic floor, the perineum, kind of letting go. So as you're breathing, you don't have to do anything. But as you're breathing, just allow the body to respond naturally. And so perhaps you can even imagine here, when you inhale, the pelvic floor descends. So it doesn't go up like some people think, it actually goes down like the respiratory diaphragm goes down. So you may not necessarily feel it, but just take a moment as you're there in child's pose to imagine the pelvic floor descending down on the inhale, receiving the breath, and then on the exhale, drawing back up and in. So just as you're breathing, imagine that nice flow.
And then start to expand the breath. So now bring the breath more into the ribs. So what I mean by expand is don't take a deep breath, but just make it more expansive. So you feel the breath into the side ribs and into the back ribs. So as you inhale, feel the breath more now expansive. And take your time, long, smooth. There's no rush. Okay, and then just release from there. And come back onto your hands and knees. And we're just going to try something here. So I think the next one I'll need my video. So let's just try coming up into standing. And when you do this, this is the idea where we want that transition to be really smooth and controlled. So come into a half kneeling position. So bringing one foot forward. And at first, if you want to use your hands, you can. But as you step forward with that other foot, what I'd like you to try to do is see if you can really stay on that one leg, the standing leg, for a little while, and see if that free leg that's coming up can slowly come up and stand up and place that foot right beside the other one, and then try it again. So back down on, maybe try the other knee. And then as you come up, remember this is part of the practice, leaning forward, of course, shifting the body weight forward, and then seeing if you can control. So you're on one leg and you may need your hand on a wall or a chair for extra balance. And then coming forward and then trying to stand. And try that a couple more times, and notice this time when you do it, notice your breath, notice any muscular tension in your body. So as you go from that half kneeling up into standing, do you notice any tension through the jaw, the neck? Are you bracing somewhere? So it's not, and if you want, you can try to time standing up with an exhale, but just finding some smoothness and movement, some control, and take your time. Okay, so that's great. Hello, everyone. So this is great. We have a few more minutes, and you know, it worked out almost perfectly. But so from the sitting to, or from the kneeling to the standing, what I was talking about was the different levels. Was, you know, first you come up, you know, however you can. And then what I'd like you to practice is this idea of not using the hands, shifting and staying on that one foot for a while, and then placing that foot right where you want it. So it's that idea of control. Okay, so coming into the next sequence here, and it's good we have the video because this sequence, I think it's good if you maybe just watch it first. So what we're going to do is this extended child's pose. So this is what it looked like. See, those of you who never have done it before, it was the big toes touching, the heels and the knees apart, sinking back, and this coming forward. So that was the position. So now what we're going to do is we're going to come into a flow. So just watch here for now. So it's this extended child's, and then we're going to come to a plank, and then a little puppy dog. So it's not downward dog. Your knees are bent, you're sinking back, and then back to plank, and then back to child's. So we're just going plank, child's, plank, puppy dog, plank, child's, but not that fast. We want to have the movement match the breath and not the other way around. So we don't want the breath to match the movement. And we're going to exhale as we go forward into plank. So you can try it. If you want to watch a bit more, you can try it. So all breath out, exhaling. And then just stay here in child on the inhale. And then on the exhale, transition to plank. And then on the inhale, let's try that puppy dog. And then on the exhale, back to plank. Take your time. Drop your knees. Inhale into extended child's. Exhale to plank, going at your own pace. Inhale, puppy dog. Exhale, plank. And inhale, take a little break. Check in with that intention that you set. Check in with breath, with any body tension, shake it out. Maybe even chew some air with your mouth there. It's like you're chewing air. Shake out the jaw. And we're going to try that one more time. And this time, visualize the pelvic floor going down and up with breath. Just an imagery. So all breath out. The pelvic floor goes up on the exhale. Staying here in child's pose, on the inhale, imagine the pelvic floor descending down and widening, like the sit bones widening, the tailbone going up to the sky. And then exhale to plank. Imagine the pelvic floor going up, drawing up. And then inhale to that puppy dog. Pelvic floor goes down, it widens, tailbone up to the sky, sit bones widen. Exhale, plank, imagining pelvic floor going up, drawing up. Dropping the knees, inhaling, sinking back, pelvic floor descends down and widens. Okay, take a moment there. And the last couple minutes, I'll show you some of the things we did in standing. So as you come up into standing practice, this is part of the yoga. Okay, so coming into just a standing mountain pose. Make sure you can see my feet here. So just a standing mountain pose with the feet with a wider base of support. Okay, and you can just shift from right to left. Check in with your body, check in with the breath. And then stepping one foot back to a warrior one, or it could even be like a little lunge. The heel doesn't have to be on the ground. And then back to the mountain. And we're going to keep the feet wide. So just a wide base of support here. And then switch legs. So with control, stepping back. We can even bring some arms into it. And then to mountain, you can bring your hands to heart center. So that's just starting with a wide base. And we can even go maybe not as far. And then I'm just going to jump straight to coming really close together. So stepping back, like in tandem, like you're walking a tightrope. and then feet come as close together as you can. Other leg, tightrope. So that makes it a little bit more challenging. And we can even try with the arms behind the back. That might feel a little different. And notice if there's any clenching. Are your toes gripping, your jaw, your neck, your shoulders? And then let's try tree pose. So just finding your weight on one leg. And you can bring the leg up higher or keep it down, or even bring the toes up, keep the toes close to the ground if you feel like you need to. And then finding breath. And we can even imagine that this top hand's your respiratory diaphragm, the bottom hand, let's just pretend there, that's the pelvic floor. And when we inhale, they both go down. When we exhale, they draw up. So we inhale, down, exhale, up. Letting go what doesn't serve you in this moment, finding stability and strength, but with an ease. Have some fun. And we can move the arms so we can try, see what that feels like. Maybe even side to side, even bend the trunk a little bit. If we need a little break, how about we do the other leg? And we'll just continue on. And even try to move just your eyeballs. So you turn your eyeballs one way, the other way, and then you can turn your head. And let's try turning the whole trunk. Having some fun, being playful. You don't have to be perfect. Falling out is good because that means you're really challenging your balance, and this is where the practice is at. And then the last little bit is just we talked more about these transitions. So something like tree pose back to the lunge or the warrior one. So instead of coming into mountain, now we're coming onto one leg and then stepping back. And one last thing, one arm up toward the sky, other leg back, and then we can do a little twist. So now we're adding a lot of different things, movement with the one leg stance. And you can try the other side. And this will be the last one here. One leg back, that same arm up. And if you really want to have some fun and you feel safe, you can try closing your eyes. That's very challenging. So we wouldn't do that right away. Often we would just do, mountain and just close your eyes in mountain and then progress, from there. So I hope that gives you a little bit of an idea. So let's just take a moment. You can stay where you are. You can probably just listen for the remaining few minutes here. Relax, check in with that intention, maybe release it if you want to, or maybe you want to take it with you for the rest of the day. Okay, so we'll go to Brenna. She's going to explain now what we found during the qualitative research and these themes here.
Thank you, Shelley. So this figure summarizes our thematic analysis. We found two core or central themes, those being mindful and compassionate self and grounded together. And on the outside of the figure, you can see the interrelated themes of creating a safe space, the recognition of benefits beyond physical, and certainly some of the quotes spoke to that, a sense of community, support and connection, along with respecting and balancing individual needs. Just want to finish with a final couple quotes from participants that I think are nice summaries. The feeling that you can just of going and doing something and really getting outside of your comfort zone, then the feeling of accomplishment when you do it, it's empowering. Being in a room of like-aged women doing it made you think, yeah, maybe I can do it. I'll turn it over to Kathy.
So I would just like to end this presentation before we entertain questions to acknowledge our funding support, which came for the pilot project was from the College of Medicine at the University of Saskatchewan. But we also have a grant moving forward to move some of our findings into knowledge translation, and we've received a CIHR grant for that. And just acknowledging the many people who've helped us along the way. And the final slide, we're in the process of developing a video of the yoga intervention and using some of the, similar to what you saw today with what Shelley has done, and that's coming. And I just thought I'd send the link of where that will be. It is at the same site that I shared where other videos are on Wednesday. So thank you very much for listening. And if we have time for a few questions, we're happy to try and answer.
Yes, we do have some time for a couple of questions. I had a couple. You answered actually one of them, Kathy. But thank you, Kathy, Shelley, and Brenna for that wonderful presentation. So there was a couple questions as we went through, and I'm not sure if everyone saw them, but I'll start with the one that hasn't been answered yet. The question is, can you talk about the inclusion for your study? Many of the poses you show would cause flags for me related to functionality, heat, knee, hip, wrist issues. What would you be doing at the end of the study, or would you be showing variations along the way is the question.
So I can maybe just answer the inclusion for this study, and then I'll let Shelley or Brenna talk about variations. So for this study, it was women between 50 to 70 years, and some of the exclusion that we had was not so much for the yoga, because I think that yoga can be adapted for just about anyone. But the exclusion was some of the safety around the testing that we did. So we did, if women particularly had more upper body injuries or pain that might cause some difficulties in them doing the landing activity that we had as part of the study, then they were not included in the study for safety reasons. And so I'll let maybe Shelley and Brenna talk a bit about variations.
I'll start, and then maybe if Brenna, if you have anything to add. So yeah, like Kathy said, we adapt. Yoga is so adaptable, and we didn't have time here. And I was going to mention some, but with some of the technical difficulties, I didn't get into that. But yes, absolutely. So some of the women, had trouble getting on their knees and had trouble bending their knees. If you can imagine that extended child's pose, not everybody has that knee mobility, has the ankle mobility. So there's a lot of different adaptations, modifications for anyone. So I don't know, Brenna, if you wanted to add anything else to that.
Yeah, we had two groups of women go through for two different 12-week periods, and certainly it was adapted to the needs of the women in each group. I was there for a good portion of the classes, even those I wasn't teaching, to be an assist, to go around and help individuals, different props or supports they might need or modifications. So although it was done in a group setting, the intention was to give many options for people with where they're at with their functional abilities.
I hope that answers your question, Paul. There was a question that you did answer, Kathy, as we went along, but the request to define what bother would be referring to. But maybe you can speak to that just in case everyone hasn't read the Q&A section.
Right. Yeah. So bother is how much either incontinence frequency, bothers your daily life. So there's a series of questions, and yes, it is a visual analog scale. Someone asked about that, but it is within a standardized questionnaire. It's called the ICIQ flutes. And so that's the questionnaire that we use. So it does measure the bother or the impact that's reported. And then the pad test, which we used, is more of a stress test. So they actually put an incontinence pad in, drink a whole lot of water, 500 mils, and then you're doing, climbing stairs, jumping jacks, stressed kinds of tests, and then you reweigh the pad after. So that's the incontinence test that we use.
Great, thanks. I had a question, and it's one that you touched on at the very beginning when you talked about the reaction time and descent, fall descent. We talk about fall prevention, but is it do you think maybe it's more accurate to talk about preventing injuries from falls than preventing falls altogether, given that we are going to fall? Should we focus more on that issue of preventing injuries in a fall?
That tends to be my slant, and that has been the focus of my research for a while. But I think you have to have both. I think you want to try and prevent falls from happening, and I think we know what is involved in doing that. But people are going to fall, and so then it's what can we do that can prevent the more serious injuries that might happen because of that. So I think it's a combination of both.
Shelley or Brenna, did you want to add to that, or no? It's good.
I'll just say on that, just if anybody's interested, because we didn't have a chance to show it for the practice, but that was one thing we did in class, was to control descent. So in yoga, it's something called Chaturanga. Of course, again, we modify and adapt, but it's like a push-up where you're lowering down, and then even tried to push away and then land, and then doing that at the wall. So similar to those of you that watched Kathy's presentation, and you saw how we measured some of that landing. We tried to simulate that in the yoga practice as well.
Great, thanks. So you answered a little bit of the question, Kathy, that I had, was what's next? So you talked about getting some dollars from CIHR for knowledge translation. Did you want to take a minute and just expand on that a little bit?
Sure. A fair bit of that has been halted with COVID-19, unfortunately, just like a lot of research. But the plan with that grant is that we are going out to community groups and stakeholders, talking about the findings, the interventions, and the goal is ultimately, how can we take this into the community? How can we establish some programs? How can we attract people to get involved? And then we're also doing a series of videos to use for knowledge sharing, and we're also planning like an instructor training type of workshop is the other thing that we have in mind moving forward. And who knows, maybe there's another study potentially on the horizon with yoga, because we're quite pleased with the results for this short pilot project.
That's great. Thanks so much. Thank you, all three of you, Kathy, Shelley, Brenna, for presenting today. It's been really interesting to hear about your work, and also I think we enjoyed a little bit of a different kind of presentation, actually getting those of us watching involved. So thank you so much. To all of the folks watching, all of our delegates, just a reminder to complete the short survey at the end of this session. We really do value your feedback for future events. And thank you for attending this session. We're right on time, just a minute to go, which is fantastic. So thanks everyone for staying on time. Thank you for attending this session, and hopefully we'll see you back here at 3 p.m. for our final wrap-up presentation, which I think is going to be really interesting. So thanks everybody.